Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel with myself, Isabella. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're all really well and you're all tackling your goals this year. I'm here to help. So today I'm going to be finally answering some of your questions. Now, some of you guys sent these questions in a long time ago, but we're finally getting around to answering them. Today, let's do a Q&A. These are all Instagram questions. So I regularly ask you guys for questions on Instagram. We do now weekly lives on Instagram where I answer all your questions weekly. My Instagram is @Ballet with Isabella. Link in the description, so make sure you follow. We're a really nice growing community and my Instagram is really growing at the moment, so it's so lovely to see. So make sure you follow along. Lots of helpful ballet tips, glimpses into my classes and online courses as well, and just lots of helpful things. So hopefully across all platforms we're really sort of growing a beautiful community here. So let's start. I'm learning Vaganova. In développé to the front, can your back lean backwards? And in à la seconde, can you lift the hip? I've seen it a lot. So basically, I'm laughing because obviously we shouldn't be lifting the hip. So when you développé à la seconde, we should be really nice and beautifully square. What you may have seen is a slight leaned à la seconde that we do in grand battement. Almost like, you know, when we do balançoire front and back, it's almost like to the side. And that's like the only time you can slightly tilt, because that's quite a lent over à la seconde, but really your hip should be as square as possible. And when you're doing développé front, it's not a lean back in the hips, obviously. So when you développé, you shouldn't lean back in the hips like this. If you're going to be leaning back at all, it should only be from the upper body and head. So you're expressing yourself from the top, the hips are underneath you and you're not completely leaning backwards. But again, if you're doing a balançoire, then we are leaning back and forward slightly in the hips, but not too much. You know, it has to come from the upper back a lot more. Is the Vaganova weight chart real? I don't really know about a chart per se, but I do know they sort of have this thing that they talk about where you have to be 50 kilograms. And I spoke about this in a recent podcast episode with my very good friend, Suvi Honkanen, Dancer's Mindset. I think we'll publish that episode here if I haven't already, where we're talking about eating disorders and things. And the Vaganova have this old-fashioned thing of, yeah, you have to be 50 kilos and no more. However, you got to take that with a pinch of salt. They don't weigh you regularly. They'll just say to you whether, you know, you look too fat or not. At one point I was told, this is how ridiculous it is though, because I was told at one point to lose weight, and obviously, you know, I'm 5'10", so I'm 176 centimeters. For me to be 50 kilograms, that's almost impossible. So I got down, because obviously I was like this to anyone who was telling me anything. So I got down to 51 kilograms, and then they were like, you're anorexic, you look terrible. So I wasn't even at the place that they told me to be at, and then they said, you look too thin, you know, you need to gain more weight again. That I was told that by a very old-fashioned teacher. So then when I actually spoke to my current teacher, she was like, how much do you weigh? When I looked anorexic, and I was like 51, and she was like, oh, okay, you need to be like 54, 55. And I was like, yeah, I know. Thanks for telling me now. So that was when I kind of like stopped listening to people too much. It's really about how you look. And one time my mum, who is obviously only trying to help, we'll definitely get her on the YouTube at some point, she asked Ekaterina Kondarova, who she was working with at the time, she asked her once, like, you know, how much do you weigh? Like, sorry for the personal question, but my daughter's the same height as you, and she's sort of wondering what you should aim for. And she actually said a really great answer. She was like, I don't think about the weight on the scale, I just go by how I look. So if I'm happy with how I look, then that's fine. And so that is literally how I go by life now. If I'm happy with how I look and how I feel, then that's enough, and everyone can just, you know, deal with it. You know, what is a number? Like, it's really ridiculous because some people have heavier bones, you know, like everybody is different. The Vaganova weight chart is real, but it's not really used that much. I think it was probably used a lot more in the past than it is now. What do you think is the most scary thing in the ballet world? There's never anything that's like, you know, really scary. I think probably the thing that we're all scared about is achieving our goals and getting where we want to be. And, you know, the fear of not achieving that is something that really drives us forward. But sometimes it can really cripple us and stop us from achieving that, because we can self-sabotage and we get lots of imposter syndrome, like, you know, I can't possibly achieve that. You know, the most scary thing about the ballet world is not achieving what we want. Like any job, there's pressures, there's highs, there's lows, and it's just about how you deal with it. And if you have, you know, a good head on your shoulders and a good mindset, part of why we do the podcast, you know, to help you guys, then it's much easier to get through that, and you see the rationale of each situation, and that will lead to a more lasting career. Like, you know, you don't want to go into this career afraid. Yeah, you got to go for it in life. We only get one life. So yeah, I'd say the scariest thing probably for most people of any nature that's trying to achieve something very high is the fear of not achieving that. But we can't think like that. We have to think that the achievement itself is inevitable. So, did you find the culture atmosphere toxic at Vaganova? No, not at all. I mean, everybody has different experiences everywhere. So, you know, I didn't have the best experience at the Royal Ballet School, like a lot of people don't, but a lot of people have a great experience. I had a fantastic experience at Vaganova, difficult. As you know, I've had many lows as well as highs, but I've had lots of lows at Vaganova, you know, going through a couple of serious injuries, which were very hard to deal with, very hard. But the environment was tough, for sure. The teachers are very tough and they want the best out of you, but I wouldn't ever use the word toxic at all. I'd say it was tough and strict, but nurturing. You know, for those that have had a hard time, it really, really depends on so many things. Like, you know, it's all about timing and also who you come across, like who your teacher was. I was lucky, you know, I had some really great teachers who really nurtured me and really believed in me, and even through difficult times and adversity, they were still very much by my side. And although it was frustrating for them and for me, they didn't give up on me. And so I was very lucky in that regard. They really looked after me in that way. But it was difficult. There were many times I was upset, crying, but that's because we're all trying to achieve these amazing things. I have had friends who, you know, have been at Vaganova and they've had a not so great time because their teacher has been a little bit toxic and, you know, screaming at them and not saying nice things and making them feel like rubbish. And that's unfortunate. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure in every institution there are going to be teachers that are just not nice people. And not thinking about the best interest of you or how their words can affect you. And that's true in any school. So I had a good experience, but I wouldn't be surprised if some others didn't, just like everywhere else, you know. How far do you think an adult beginner can actually progress? I am discouraged at the lack of individual attention I get at any of the studios near me. Oh my gosh, well, I wish you were here with me, because this is something I hugely pride myself in and take extremely seriously, is making sure adults feel like they're seen and valued. And I think, you know, I love adult beginners, and the ones that I seem to attract are the ones I want to teach. Like the ones that I attract are the ones that really want to learn ballet properly, really want to take it slow and actually understand it, because obviously you'll get many adult hobbyists who just want to go to the advanced class and sort of fumble around and, you know, do the class but not really understand anything. Like, you know, if you would say, how on earth do you do a tendu, they wouldn't really be able to tell you in like massive detail, whereas I attract the dancers who really want to get into that detail and really learn ballet properly, which is really wonderful. And giving adults attention and making them feel seen is something I think is hugely important, because so many of you go to class and just feel like the teacher doesn't care about you and just like cares about the professional ones, and I just think it's really unfair. And also, just because you're not trying to be a professional and not trying to, you know, dance on stage one day, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be given the attention. You know, you want to be good at something, you want to understand it, you want to appreciate it more. Like when you watch it, you want to understand it more. So if you're ever in London, unfortunately, you're probably in a scenario where that's not so accessible to you. You know, join my online platform. Try it for 7 days as well, because there's so many things on there for adult beginners, as well as whenever you're in London, please come to my open classes. I would love to meet you. I would love to help you. And it's something that I really, really value. Adult beginners are some of my favorite clients, to be honest. What does it take to be a professional dancer? Good question. It takes It takes obviously natural aesthetic. So, you've got to have a certain body type. You've got to have a slim body, obviously, if we're talking very superficially. You've got to have desire to dance, and, desire to improve. You've got to have discipline, because it's not every day you're going to want to work on stuff. It's not every day you're going to want to go to ballet class, want to be coached. You're going to feel tired sometimes. So discipline is a huge one. And it takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a love of ballet, obviously, to make it as a professional dancer. A lot of grit. One very important thing is to have positive self-talk, because from my experience, the ones who are very negative towards themselves are the ones that don't make it all the way, because that really holds them back. So obviously we've got to have the stuff like the flexibility and the strength, but that can all be improved. And obviously the desire to improve, the desire to dance is hugely important. But if you don't have some of those things now, those things can be attained. But the desire and the discipline has to be there from the get-go, I think. When did you start dancing? Well, I started when I was 2. My mum shoved me into ballet class, but I really didn't want to do it. So I often screamed and I hid under the piano. Like, I really didn't want to do it. I did cause her a hard time. But seriously, I'd say around 7, and then 9 was when I started to get private coaching on the side of my other lessons. Initially, I was still in primary school, obviously, so I just had her on the weekends. But that was when I started to fall in love with Russian ballet and hard work. I loved working hard and achieving something. It's just amazing how young people from like 9 can just enjoy working so hard at something. We don't want to play with toys. We don't want to spend hours with our friends like that. We just want to work really hard at something. And I think it's a type of personality that ballet requires, that, you sort of enjoy that so young. Were you a professional dancer? Yes, I worked with Eiffman Ballet and the Mikhailovsky Ballet for quite a time, and really enjoyed it. I really loved it, and it was very different from school, obviously. When I moved back to London, obviously I've been away quite a long time, and I sort of enjoyed being in London, and then I started to enjoy helping other people, and then I just fell in love with helping people. But there will be, if it's not out already, there is a YouTube video coming out, it may be already out actually, about why I left Russia and sort of why I'm not dancing in a company anymore, because there was many misconceptions towards what people thought. So I sort of cleared that up a little bit in a bit more detail. What are some tips for someone transitioning from a ballet school to an apprenticeship program? Really good question. I actually just sort of touched on that just then. So it's really hard moving from school to a company. All of a sudden, it's really different. You're not told, you're not corrected loads all of a sudden in the class. You're sort of left on your own. You've got to learn lots of parts now. You need to go in with a really open mind and sort of accept that this is going to be different from school, because I think it's often a huge shock for people when they join an apprenticeship program or join a company, especially if they were doing well in the school, to now transition and sort of be like now from going from the top to the bottom again. That is very hard, I think, for some people to manage and to deal with. So just accept that, okay, I'm going in at the bottom, I'm going to work really hard and work my way up, but the first step, I'm in, and now it's about climbing that ladder. You're not going to get the attention in class as usual, so you need to be disciplined in class, really take each class as seriously as you did in school, really work on, maintaining that technique, don't lose it, don't get sloppy with your technique. Even if company members are slightly sloppier with their technique, really just ignore that and sustain yours, because that will just help you with your lasting career. When you're in rehearsals, really try to learn as much as you possibly can. When you're watching the corps de ballet, try to learn as many spots as you can, so that when that chance comes, and it often does come, you can be thrown straight in. Be really keen with that and just look like, you're really excited to be there, which I'm sure you are. And also respect the other dancers, respect that they've been there a while. So, respect boundaries. Obviously, if you go in, you're instantly at the front, people can find that a little bit disrespectful. Respect other people's boundaries, but then make friends, be nice, be humble, and enjoy yourself. I'm really excited for you. Well done. Well done. This is the very start. And obviously, if it's an apprenticeship program, you're looking for that contract. towards the end. So just try your best every day, try your best in class, try your best in every rehearsal. Like I say, learn as much as you can. You know, towards the end of your apprenticeship, ask for a meeting and say, you know, I'd really like to be here, and what is the likelihood that that's possible for me. Good luck, and go for it. How do you connect with your audience while dancing? Yeah, well, again, I'm bringing out very soon, in a couple of months, I think, an artistry course, which will definitely cover this. So we can definitely talk about that more. But, you know, in short, I just filmed, if it's not out already, because I'm not sure of when things will come out. We watched and analysed the 4 different ballerinas doing Odile variation. You know, one thing that really gives intent is when you're looking to the audience, you're literally looking out. The pauses as well really help you. So, you know, but even if you're in a ballet class, like ballet class variation, like it's really important you look out towards the audience, and, you know, also use the pauses. So as you go, and if you step to the corner, no rushing. Like, you know, it's very obvious when someone's not quite a mature dancer. Like if they pose piqué and then run, it's better if there's a pose and then run. Leave your head as you go, then quickly turn around to the audience. Always look at them before you prepare to then do another pose. You know, so you literally connect with them by looking at them. If you're never looking at them at all, if you're never looking to the front, of course you're not going to connect. So you have to give intent and confidence to the audience, you know. As you turn, leave your head, freeze a little bit, and then go. So yeah, much more detail to come, but you connect by literally looking in their direction. What's your top tips for improving flexibility? Is there an age limit? No, there isn't an age limit to improve your flexibility. Obviously, when you get to a certain point, like if you're 65 and trying to get your legs by your ears, that's going to be unless you have these very lax ligaments, that's going to be really difficult. That's going to be very hard to achieve. And we don't need that, do we, at 65? Like, don't worry. But in terms of improving your flexibility, like there's a lot of misconception that you can't improve at all. And it's like, I really think that's a load of baloney. Like if I started stretching, if my calves are really tight and I started stretching my calves every day for 2 minutes each calf, of course my calves are going to get looser. Of course I'm going to feel benefits. And of course my flexibility in my lower legs is going to improve. So there's no age limit to improvement. As long as you're consistent, it's like anything else. You're not going to get a result from one sit-up or a 1 minute stretch once in a while. Like anything, if you're consistent with your stretching or whatever it is you want to improve, then of course it will improve. I can't do pirouettes. Every video is too fast and I always turn on the opposite side for some reason. I'm not sure which videos you're watching, but I think you need to slow down. Like, you know, I think if you're struggling and you're watching videos that are too fast, then you're watching a level of video that's not for you. So you need to slow down. I'm creating something specifically along these lines soon. It should come out in again a couple of months, but you need to work out the fundamentals of your pirouette and what's going wrong at this point. Maybe you're lacking a little bit of strength in the push off and finding that retire. Maybe your spotting isn't good, and if you're turning the other way, then I think you're at a moment in your training that you're not super familiar with the movement itself. So you need to really break it down. Do like plie, retire, half turn, or plie, retire en face, and then plie, quarter turn, plie, quarter, you know, and then get used to spotting, you know, plie, spot the head, all this kind of things. But you definitely need to slow down and perfect one turn to begin with at a slow temp, and then slowly progress from there. Even if you start as an adult, always think of yourself like you're in school and you're 9 years old. You wouldn't go from grade 1 to the graduation year, would you? Just because it's more fun in the graduation year. You wouldn't skip those 8 years just because it's a little bit slow and boring in grade 1. So really take it slow. The slower the better. And then you're setting yourself up for having some fantastic foundations. Why do you have the slope in the Vaganova studios? Yeah, I know. Why? In historic theatres, such as the Mariinsky, and a lot of theatres in Europe and Italy, I think the La Firenze in Venice is also sloped, along with some others, obviously. The audience was flat. and the stage was sloped. So the stage is sloped, so literally the audience can see the whole stage and see what's going on. So obviously all the studios in the Mariinsky are catered to that. So all the studios are sloped because it was designed so that the dancers who are training in this school move on and go to the Mariinsky Theatre and dance there, which is also sloped. But then they built the new Mariinsky 2, and the stage there is flat. And so now there's a huge studio in the Vaganova. You've probably seen it. It's the grey floor, and it's sort of the modern looking one. That is flat. And so now we used to, and that was there when I was there, and we used to jump from flat to raked to, sloped, and flat to sloped, flat to sloped. And so we sort of got used to the difference, but it is an adjustment for sure. But I feel like the slope just makes you really strong, like doing like piqué manège and jeté manège uphill, especially jeté manège. Like it's like, getting the back leg up, super difficult, oh my gosh. But you get strong, Should I avoid heels? Hilarious question. I avoid heels because I'm a giant, other than maybe New Year's. I'll put the heels on. But no, you don't have to avoid heels. Obviously, just see, some people's feet are like very sore and they have bunions and everything, and they don't want to smush their feet into heels. But if you want to wear heels. They're not exactly bad for you. It's just obviously wearing them for a long time can make your feet really sore, and it's also not so great for your lower back if you sink into your lower back. So use your core if you're in your heels, but of course you can wear heels. Am I too tall to be a ballerina? Well, you're talking to a giant yourself, and essentially, no, I don't think you're too tall. I think obviously if you're leaning towards 6'2" on flat, then on point you're going to be like 6'5", 6'4", and you're going to need an extremely tall partner. And I think you'd probably be best catered towards a more contemporary career, just because it's hard to find a partner that's that tall. I'm tall, but not so tall, sort of the same height as Lopatkina, the same height as Ekaterina Kondorova, the same height as many fantastic dancers, and it's fully possible for you to find places that are catered to that. It's just like you need to just think strategically. So obviously if you're living in a country where everybody in the school is short, everybody in the company is short, then you're going to struggle getting a job there. So it may be that you need to open your mind and branch out to dancing somewhere else where they're more catered to taller dancers, like Germany. Europe is great for taller dancers. They're much more open to it. Sweden, Lausanne, all of those places. So I don't think you're too tall. How to overcome overthinking while performing. So I think, my podcast and what we talk about really covers this kind of thing. Check that out for sure, because there's so many episodes on how to think and what happens when we overthink and we think anxious thoughts. But obviously I've had it for sure, where I've had that in my recent video about Olga Smirnova and how I replaced her. I had a huge anxiety attack of like overthinking and out of body experiences. What you should aim to do is be rehearsed enough that you can enjoy the moment, and it's about trusting yourself and trusting that you can do all the technical stuff, and then it's about telling a story to the audience. Like, I think we need to almost be less selfish, and that's not a bad thing. It's like when you go on stage, it's not about you anymore, about what you're giving to somebody in the audience. And I think if you change that perspective and start to think about what they are witnessing and what they may be feeling from your dancing, and it's about you want to give something to them, you want to tell your story to the audience. And when you remove the selfishness from you, like, oh God, what if I do wrong? What if I do it badly? What if I can't do that turn? It's like no one really cares that much. What people care about is just that you do it, and you do it well. It doesn't need to be amazing. You just need to do it well, and then think about the story you're sending out to the audience. And you can do it well. You've been rehearsing it. You've been doing it over and over again. So of course you can do it well. You need to trust that. I can do it well. I've done this so many times. I'm ready for this. Now it's about what I'm going to give to them, and I'm excited to give it to them. You need to go on stage with a sense of anticipation and excitement to tell that story rather than dread. And I think changing that rationalization in your mind will really help you deliver, stop you from overthinking, basically. So now, there's quite a serious question that's come in, and I'm quite interested to answer it. So may talk about this with my friend Suvi. Definitely, we will on the podcast as well, but let's touch on it today. I hear some people say that ballet dancers, female ballet dancers, are very often the object or interest of men, be it a choreographer or men in the audience, that they basically just come to the theatre to stare at you. What's your experience? I don't know. The sort of audience thing, like, it's possible. I haven't had much personal experience from that, and to be honest, I don't really care. Like, for modern men who aren't dancers, it's always a bit of, a different experience to watch a female performer dance on stage with barely anything on other than a leotard, which is like second nature to us and to male ballet dancers. It's like the norm, but it's not normal for a normal man to see. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're, staring a little bit. And to be honest, I don't really think about it, and I don't think it's worth thinking about or worrying about that. That's just another thing to worry about. So don't worry. But I'm more like, that's not a concern to me. What's more of a concern is predatory behavior between choreographers, directors, teachers towards women, and it's often towards naive women and to women who need help or want to do well in their career. And that's sort of something that these men know and prey upon and use to their advantage. They use their place of power against these naive women, and it's disgusting and it needs to be addressed. And I think often the case is nobody really speaks out when this kind of thing is happening because they're afraid of getting fired, afraid of getting in trouble. I would say, like, I'm not going to talk about it too much now. It does happen more than I would like to happen. Like, it happens too often and it's really upsetting. But I think if you know anyone that's doing that to either you or a friend, don't stay quiet. Speak to somebody you can trust. And sometimes it won't always be the women that you can trust, unfortunately. So if, the woman is in a place of power and she's, let's say, she's in charge of who's hired and etc., it's possible that she may be aware of what's going on and choosing to ignore it. That happens a lot as well. It's best to speak to somebody that you really trust, be it a parent or a friend, and go from there and decide what to do and see if anybody else has had that experience. But it's not good to stay quiet, because that kind of thing is really uncomfortable to deal with and you're not sure what to do. But yeah, definitely speak up about it. The younger generation coming through are a much sort of more kinder, aware generation, I think, of this kind of thing. Like, myself growing up, like, I'm doing this podcast to help people. I know a lot of other people want to, empower people and help. So I feel like I'm hoping that this sort of proves as generations go on. But we'll talk about this a bit more with my friend Suvi, but because it's an interesting topic and one that needs to be discussed for sure. Do you think flexibility and higher extensions are something you can improve on and achieve as an adult? Yeah, so we touched on that recently. Like, you can definitely improve your flexibility. Can't promise that you're going to get legs that are like super duper high, because it's about, many things, like what your body is capable of, but also how much effort you're putting in. Then, your input will let you know what your output's going to be. So basically, yeah, you can definitely improve on it. And so I would say be consistent and be patient, because it takes time, especially as you get older. It takes longer. Do you believe in destiny? Do you feel like a call to dance? I don't believe necessarily in destiny. I sort of feel like we all end up where we're meant to be. I guess you could call it destiny. We all end up where we want to be, and we all are headed towards, we all are designed to have a desire to do something. Like, our personality suits a certain kind of destiny. But I don't believe in destiny like you will be handed this no matter what. Like, you can sit on the sofa for 2 years and you'll be the principal dancer, or you'll run a successful business from, sat in front of the television. Like, definitely not. Like, I believe that we have the capabilities to have a certain type of destiny that we want, but it's up to us to make that happen. A couple more questions now, and then we'll leave it there for today. Did you ever miss a class at Vaganova? Not when injured. No. I don't think I'd dare miss a class from Vaganova if I wasn't actually injured, or, if there was no reason to miss it. No, I wanted to go to every lesson. I wouldn't dream of missing a lesson. I wouldn't want to have that guilt on my conscience to miss the lesson. So no, I I definitely didn't miss a lesson unless I absolutely had to. And I enjoyed every lesson. So how to choose a variation. We spoke about this on an Instagram live once. There's several different ways you can choose a variation. If you're choosing for a competition, I would want to choose a variation that utilizes my strengths. So if I like pirouettes and jumps, I'd want to choose a variation that embodies that. So I wouldn't say, actually, correction, not just that I like jumping, I'm good at jumping. Then I would choose a variation that highlights that, so that I feel confident in what I'm giving across and confident in my abilities. So choose a variation that shows versatility. So it has turns, it has jumps, and it has style and character, and ideally a variation that, you know, shows many technical things and artistic nuances. Definitely something that highlights your strengths, especially if it's for a competition. You can also choose a variation for learning capabilities. So you can choose a variation to help you improve. So let's say you're not good at jumps, you're not good at turns. Choose a variation that has those things in them, has lots of jumps, has lots of turns, so that you can work on them, because there's nothing like practicing variations. They really get you in shape and they really help you improve in areas that you're, let's say, weaker in. So whatever the goal is, choose a variation that highlights that goal, whether it's to get better at something or whether it's to highlight something that you're good at. Do you consider planning an intensive? For sure, guys. I'm actually in the process of planning a summer intensive. It's on the down low at the moment. I haven't released anything, so don't tell anybody. But it's going to be announced relatively soon, and it's going to be the end of August. So save those dates for yourself, end of August, from the 28th till the end. And so it's going to be a mixture of some days for adults, some days for vocational students. So in some beautiful studios in the UK, in London. So definitely save those dates, and there'll be more details on that soon. When did you graduate from Vaganova, and did you like their teaching style? Yeah, obviously, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm a huge fan of their teaching style, and it suited me the best. It suited my body and me. Maybe it doesn't suit everybody, but I loved it. And I graduated in 2012. Year of the Olympics in the UK. All right, guys, well, we'll leave it there. I hope I answered some of your questions. Sorry if I didn't answer yours this time, but we'll be doing many more Q&As. Let me know if you like this kind of video, and let's do more of these. Let's answer more of your questions. Let me know if you want more themed Q&As. So, you know, Q&A about flexibility, Q&A about turnout, whatever. Let me know if you'd enjoy that a little bit more. But thank you so much. Leave your comments down below, like, subscribe, and thank you for the support as always. Check out my website, balletwithisabella.com, as well as my podcast, A Dancer's Mindset, and I will help you on your journey to being a better dancer and someone with a strong mental head on your shoulders. Thank you for the support as always. Check out my website, balletwithisabella.com, for elite classes and courses, helping you get to where you want to be with your ballet. All levels welcome, whatever your goal is. Check out my podcast, A Dancer's Mindset, helping you have a very strong head on your shoulders, and having high self-esteem and confidence, very important in what we're doing. Thank you so much, and bye for now.